October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and wear your pink ribbon in support if you can. Breast cancer is the most common cancer among women in Sri Lanka and the second most common cancer worldwide. It is 24% of all newly diagnosed cancers. But the good news is, with early detection, you can gain your life back. October is a good month for that reminder to go for your checkup. Better safe than sorry. Positive, daring, different we are. Welcome to Kaleidoscope. Today on the show, we are embarking on Miris Trails, taking stock of the US Federal Reserve and entertaining our whimsy with beads, silver and tails. Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. Remember to subscribe, follow and like us for more. A huge thank you to our wonderful partners on the show, Srilanka Life, CDB and The Daily Morning.
CDB Hybrid Leasing. Enjoy exclusive interest rate and much more for hybrids, plug-in hybrids and EV vehicles.
It is CDB Snapshot and time to take a look at the week that was. Merchandise export earnings passed $1.1 billion in August, a 4.18% increase year on year for Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's inflation drops to negative 0.5% year on year in September 2024 for the first time in 29 years. The Sri Lankan rupee appreciates by 8.2% against the US dollar during 2024 up to the 30th of September. Claudia Sheinbaum is sworn in as Mexico's first female president. Mark Zuckerberg joins the elusive $200 billion club, which only has 3 other members in the world. The UK becomes the first major economy in the world to stop burning coal for electricity as it closes its last power plant. A sample from a 3,600-year-old coffin in China has finally been identified, the world's oldest piece of cheese.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
Welcome to Srilanka Life News Capsule. The Federal Reserve in the United States lowered its benchmark interest rate by half a percentage point last week in an aggressive start to a policy shift aimed at bolstering the US labor market. The Federal Open Market Committee voted 11-1 to lower the federal funds rate to a range of 4.75% to 5%, while holding it for more than a year at its highest level in 2 decades. Sri Lanka is not an island in that sense, so how would this impact us? Managing Director and Country Officer of Citibank, Ravin Basnayaka, was in the studio with some answers. What would be the impact of the lowering of interest rates by the Federal Reserve on Sri Lanka?
So I think we first must consider what was the reason for the interest rate reduction, right? It was to avoid a hard landing of the US economy. Hard landing of the US economy is not good for anybody and it's definitely not good for us. So I think that is the first thing that we should be happy about. And if they do avoid a hard landing, I think it's good for us. The demand for our goods will go up as an exports. So I think overall that's good for Sri Lanka and of the globe. I think more kind of close to home kind of benefits are that as the easing cycle continues, it gives much more flexibility for our local central bank to implement monetary policy without being too concerned about the impact on the exchange rate, right? And then the liquidity which is available for emerging markets like Sri Lanka would go up at a much lower cost. Obviously, as we get out of the crisis and our country becomes an investable rating, that is a great advantage. So I think from a positive point of view, those are the ones that I should like to mention. On the negative side, we also must be conscious that as the interest rates reduce, the demand will grow and there would be a positive impact on commodities, which means that the oil prices and the wheat prices can go up and could have an impact on our economies because we are heavily import dependent. So I think having a flexible exchange rate policy which allows automatically regulate demand is also very important as we see the commodity prices go up.
So should Sri Lanka be taking a leaf from this book?
Sri Lanka had a much more aggressive monetary tightening because of the crisis. At the same time, we have been on an easing path in the last 18 months. So if you look at from, let's say, June 2023, we have seen central bank reduce interest rates by about 725 basis points. And the last monetary policy meeting, they reduced it by 25 basis points. Now, central bank is following a framework called the flexible inflation targeting model, which aims to keep inflation around 5% while supporting economic growth. Right? They believe that the inflation rate is going to be below the desired target for the short term, but they also believe that in the medium term it will kind of get closer to that 5% that they have projected. So in my view, while this interest rate reduction gives much more flexibility for the central bank to be aggressive if the need be, very unlikely that they will go out of the framework and make reductions just because the US interest rates came down.
And now, here's a quick look at our market sketch this week. It's all good news at the Colombo Stock Exchange, with both indices and the average daily turnover moving up on post-presidential election positive trends. After dropping during the last few weeks, crude oil prices finally rose on fears that the war in the Middle East will escalate after Iran fired missiles at Israel. WTI is still above $70 and Brent crude close to $75 per barrel. Gold prices continue to hold close to all-time record highs of $2,650 per ounce due to safe haven demand. Diesel, not the fuel kind but the fashion kind, is going green. At its latest runway show, Diesel covered the runway with 14,800 kilos of denim waste, which will be repurposed for further use, and also featured coats and jeans made from leftover denim thread. If you're hungry, you might be in the mood for these new delicacies. Insects. Chef Joseph Yoon of New York City is director of Brooklyn Bugs, and he wants you to think of insects as scrumptious. Sri Lanka has been seeing her cuisine on the map in more ways than one, and today we feature a different dimension to Sri Lankan cuisine, where tourists are on a bespoke culinary tour of Sri Lanka. But here's the thing, it's not just a culinary tour, it's a journey of discovery, and that's what Sonali Miris, the founder of Miris Trails, tells me. She launched Miris Trails in 2013, a luxury culinary tour bringing in high-end visitors to Sri Lanka to have a hands-on cooking experience coupled with seeing the amazing sights and sounds of Sri Lanka. I caught up with Sonali, who was here on her 6th Miris Trail with 18 participants, to find out more. What is the Miris Trail model?
The Miris Trail model is luxury tours, just small tours, to come into Sri Lanka and educate people from around the world, not necessarily Australia, but just around the world, to teach them about the cuisine, the environment, the people, and the country of Sri Lanka.
So over these 6 tours, I'm sure when you started off it was quite different, and now you have the 6th one running. What is different in this one?
This is all about the experience, more so than before. Before it was just about the food. This is about the experience at each of the destinations, the people, the wildlife, the environment, all of that.
What are you cooking this time from the regions, I gather?
The brief for all the chefs at the restaurants and the hotels have been to stick to local produce and what's specific to that particular region. So for example, in Sigiriya, we're actually using a recipe that the Vaddas used, where they smoke the meat and then they coat it in honey and spices that are local to that particular area, and then they carve it and cook it in pineapple juice. So we're using chatti pots because that is a big point of difference to flavour, and it's all hands-on cooking.
What have they cooked for you back home?
Pol sambal, luna miris, chicken curry, fish curry. They love roti and kottu, but this time we're actually showing them pittu, hoppers, laveria, lots of different things.
So you've lived in Australia for a long, long time. What made you choose Sri Lanka to moot Miris Trails?
It's the heritage that I have, the cultural experiences that we celebrated in Australia. Even though we grew up in Australia 56 years, we always maintained that cultural link. That was very important growing up in our house. And the burger cuisine as well as the Sinhalese cuisine was very much in tow, like, you know, your standard and staple yellow rice on a Sunday after church with your chicken curry and your dal and, you know, chutneys and all of that, and a few papadums on the side and some curd chilies. That's what we did every Sunday. And I wanted to give the Australian people that I grew up with a little bit of what I had as a child growing up, and that experience is very important because it's something that's really, really deep inside of me.
What is the potential for tourism when it comes to initiatives like food tours?
You can open up so much. We've had women in business approach us to do conferences for 4 and 5 days. We've had other people approach us to do motorbike tours with a little bit of a culinary experience. It's not just about the culinary experience for Miris Trails. It's about opening up Sri Lanka, bringing people, educating them about what we have to offer from a tourism point of view.
So at the end of this tour, you are having a book that is being published, a coffee table book. What does that book have?
The book is a celebration of their tour, their experience. It covers each of the destinations that they visited. It covers the chefs as well, and it has all the recipes that they've made. So it's a keepsake about what they've experienced in Sri Lanka, and that also conjures up that whole, you know, the 5 senses. It brings up all those memories of the tour.
Thank you, Sonali. Good luck.
Thanks,
and we hope
Savi.
Sri Lankan cuisine keeps spreading. What you see here is a timeless piece of handcrafted elegance, a collection from Kadambari. Kadambari is all about telling tales. A historian and an artisan jeweler, Rashanta Devadasan blends history, stories, cultures and nations into Kadambari, jewellery that uses ancient craft and modern looks to tell tales.
And because of my background with history and things like that, when I looked at some of the older Indian pieces to start with, I was fascinated by what they actually meant. And that's what got me going. And then I also noticed that a lot of these older antique pieces, people collect them. But then they're put away in a cupboard or they're in a museum and they're literally actually dead. So jewelry and they have to be worn to come alive. But a lot of the older pieces, you can't wear them the way they were because they don't jibe with dress of today or cultures of today. So what I try to do is I try to pick out these pieces and then rework them in a way that a modern woman would like to wear them. And then I feel they're living again.
The beads used in this collection bring stories from around the world, from Venice to Italy to Mexico, Morocco, Bali and Iran, and Nilgiri from Sri Lanka, set in hand-beaten silver, each with a story to tell.
The Sri Lankan silversmiths of the 18th, 19th centuries were the best in the world. And there were some pieces of jewelry that I don't think they can be made today. And nobody has understood how they were made. So we have a very fascinating history of adornment here in Sri Lanka. We've lost a lot of the best pieces to the foreigners who came and bought them and we didn't really value them. So it'll be really nice if an awareness can be created and younger people in Sri Lanka start really valuing and wearing things that are ethnic to Sri Lanka.
Part of the proceeds of the trade beads collection goes towards the Sunera Foundation. As we step into a new month, remember to get yourself checked, and we'll see you next week.